Hello friends and welcome back. Thank you so much for coming back to watch another review of mine. I want to thank you for all the support that I've gotten. I have really enjoyed posting this new format of book reviews, and I love that other people are finding me and we're able to talk about books on here. This is just the whole reason I do this, is I want to create a community to be able to just talk about what we love. Books, as you can see, books. Alright, today I'm going to be talking about Scarlet, which may confuse some of you as to why I would pick to read this book. French Revolution and vampires? Duh. Per usual, the format will be standard. We'll have no spoilers at the beginning for people who maybe are trying to decide whether or not they want to read it, and then the second half of the review will contain spoilers and be from a more technical perspective of why I didn't like the book. Okay, so as I said earlier, this book is about the French Revolution. I am personally obsessed with the French Revolution. I think I could go on and on about all the reasons, but Les Mis definitely is part of that reason that I am obsessed with the French Revolution. So when I heard the French Revolution mixed with vampires, I didn't need to read the back, though I should have. So I'm gonna save you all that trouble of not reading the back. This is a PSA, read the back of the book, okay? Because it might save you some time. And today I will be reading the synopsis that I have personally written myself. Okay, I'm gonna butcher this because for some weird reason I decided to add 3 French words at the beginning of the synopsis, so I apologize now, but liberté, égalité, fraternité. The French Revolution has begun. Marie Antoinette has been captured, and it's the misfortune of a servant girl in England to be the only one to save the Queen and her children. Noticed for her likeness to the Queen, Eleanor is sent to a wealthy estate where she learns to act just like a noble. Soon, she's able to mimic the Queen on a whim, and the plan is born. She's to travel to France and create a distraction while others free the Queen. But there are plots afoot. Things go quickly astray as vampires impede them, leaving many to wonder if they're entirely safe behind their estates. Could the French people be right in ripping them from their pedestals? Based on the historical Scarlet Pimpernel, Scarlet follows the courage of one young woman during the French Revolution with a fantastical vampire twist. Confirming that the back of this book does mention vampires right away, and it does. It is the beginning of the second sentence. Vampires, usually rich and aristocratic, have slaked the guillotine's thirst and large slaked. Wow, this is why we read. We learn words. Slaked the guillotine's thirst in large numbers. Okay, so vampires are mentioned right away. The vampires in this book are not what I anticipated. So I was going for a more horror-esque, fantastical, blood-sucking, are they evil or are they not vampires? And in this world of Scarlet, the vampires are very much known and are in existence. Some of them employ human servants. Some of them, well, I don't say so. Most of them are aristocratic because they've lived long enough to collect large amounts of wealth. And it's just a thing. They just exist. Honestly, the vampires were barely a real part of the story. Overall, my take of it was vampires were an afterthought. This was something that Cogman decided to throw into the story to maybe cross genre, fall into a new category. I have not read any of Cogman's other books, so I don't know what style they originally write in, if it's always been more of a speculative, fantastical, historical fiction. But the use of vampires in this book felt like a trope. It felt like a means to reach some sort of criteria and weren't actually a part of the story. To be honest, the story wasn't about vampires at all. At one point, I thought Marie Antoinette might have been a vampire, but that's not the case in the book. And really, it's centered around the humans in this world trying to play, helpers to get the aristocrat out of France. And yes, the aristocrat consists of vampires, but they could have just been regular aristocrats to begin with. In all honesty, I am obsessed with the French Revolution, and so when I'm like, French Revolution, vampires, like, you can't get more bloody than that, I was very disappointed reading this book because the inclusion of vampires just watered the plot down. Ultimately, this book just wasn't for me. I am not a historical fiction reader. It is not the genre I like. If you are here and you like historical fiction, I might not be the reviewer for you because I just don't like it. I gave this a chance because it's at the French Revolution, and all I see nowadays are World War I and World War II books, and I'm over that, so I was like, something different. Now we're gonna add vampires? How even better. But still, it was not the book for me. However, the writing style was extremely enjoyable. I appreciated that it was a quick, easy read, got me through it quicker, and her use of words, the style, the flow kind of reminded me of Diane Wayne Jones as well, which is one of my favorite writers growing up. She was my go-to. I was a fan, super fan. I'm hoping to recollect all of her books. And because of that, I did find the general time I spent reading the book to not be slogging through entirely. There was a little bit of enjoyment. But again, I don't know what Cogman writes. I don't know if this is something that she has always done or this was the first chance that they took into writing more of a fantasy style book, because the magic, so we have vampires, they're a magical element in the book, but another magical element was thrown in halfway through the book, and I accepted vampires were in this world. My suspension of disbelief happened, but you're going to throw a brand new magic theme into the book, and I'm supposed to accept it? Even in my own synopsis, I didn't include any hint that there was more magic in this world, but there is, and because of that, I became really disconnected from the story because I could not follow that part along at all. I was very confused. There might be a sequel to this book. I'm not entirely sure. I would hope for people who like the book there is, because nothing is really described about why, how, or what this new magic is about. And that was like the nail in the coffin for me. I was following along, but the minute that was introduced, I was just like, hell no, I'm out. This is not my book. The protagonist was also just okay. She was strong, she had the courage to move forward, she was wickedly smart, almost above her station, which made me think unrealistic in the style as well. But even with all of those carefully detailed plots, which still came across kind of two-dimensional to me, kind of too on the point of what the character is, instead of having that little twist to make her unique or special. And so ultimately, there was nothing dragging me into this. There was no excitement for me to read it. And don't go in expecting some fantastical dark book out of all of this, because to be honest, it was a slog. Okay, friends? Spoilers now. It is now time for me to really talk about how I felt about this book. Okay. And here we go with the synopsis lying to us again. It's not as bad as Name of the Wind. Name of the Wind, I was so excited to jump into that book. I did not know the history behind Name of the Wind and how we don't have a third book even remotely dreamt of in this world, okay? But I went into Name of the Wind excited, explosive, closed the last page of the first book, threw it in the corner, and said nothing on the back of this book happened, okay? Nothing happened. And it's almost, I feel, the same way with Scarlet. We are told there are vampires in it, and I expected them to play a really big part of the story. Instead, they're like a horse in the book, spoken about and used to move the plot forward, but not actually playing a part of the story whatsoever. Unless you're Schrader's Court, which you'll know, horses are a bigger part of that. I appreciate that Cogman actually wanted to do something different with the French Revolution and kind of like mix it up, but ultimately, every place that there was a vampire in the book, there could have just been a normal person. I mean, we have she's Eleanor's mistress, who she works for. Really, her being a vampire played no part in it whatsoever. Though Eleanor's scars are a big detail into giving her away that she isn't Marie Antoinette. There you go. It always has to happen. Yes, Eleanor's scars were something that could give her away to prove that she wasn't Marie Antoinette. We could have had any sort of malady or accident happen to have put the scars on her arms. It didn't have to coincide with a vampire's blood draw. And then we have the scene where Eleanor's in the castle and she's attacked by a bloodthirsty vampire in France. Okay, again, that could have just been a normal guy, horny, stuck in his castle, old man, gross, which is exactly how it's portrayed as a vampire anyway. He's just an old horny man who wants to taste the sweet blood of a woman, okay? Virgin, but you didn't hear. I didn't say that, okay? It could have just been a horny old man going after her. It didn't have to be a vampire. And even the last part. So the whole time I actually thought the queen was a vampire until the very end, where we find out that I guess she was turned into a vampire. To me, that part is extremely confusing still. Okay, so we have that. They run into her in the piping sewer systems. Words are not working today. They run into her. She wants her kids back. There's this whole ending catastrophe fight scene, whatever. That could have still happened without it having to be a vampires. They could have had guards chasing them. They could have to be running for their lives anyway. They could have been almost caught by the guards. It didn't have to specifically be a vampire, because still Marie Antoinette went into the water. They're supposed to not like fresh running water. She still went into the water, which I know they try to explain away, but she still went into the water to chase Eleanor. So how did that have to be a vampire? If you disagree with me, though, and you think that the vampires played a huge part of the story, comment, because I need to know. This is literally me asking, like, prove me wrong, please. I would like to be proved wrong, because I wouldn't like to think that this book is better than I thought it was. And now I come with the secret out of the bag. What is with the whole witchy mind magic element portion of the book? What was all that about? She was living in a book, and then Eleanor touched the book and transferred the person's soul from the book into herself. This witch part was the hardest thing for me to grasp. It completely disconnected me from the story. I have no clue why that happened, because I was told they were vampires. I was not told that they are witches. And though the witchy element tries to explain her existence, which also, she's 500 years old, and this is already set in the 1700s, so we're talking the 1200s. Though she tries to explain her existence slightly to Eleanor, I felt that there were too many, I can't tell you right now, I can't explain it, we're going to have to talk about that later kind of moments, that there were no answers by the end of the book. And I don't know if there's going to be a sequel, okay? And so I'm left here going, what the hell? And why couldn't we just stick to vampires? I think that Cogman could have picked other choices again to help Eleanor get out of the situations that the witch presence did. I've said a lot of negatives. I want to say something positive about this book right now, which is the fact that this book covers large swaths of setting. We go from 2 manors in England, castles, whatever you want to call them, in England, to traveling on a boat to the French countryside, to being in Paris, to all of the Paris dealings, to coming back, the sewers, all of that stuff. And that is a lot. That is something that really scares me. I'm currently working on a book right now that is not even close to the depth of setting as Scarlet is, and I'm already shitting my pants. I really, really struggle with being able to describe enough description in a book to help the reader see without bogging it down. And I'm not saying I bogged it down. I probably give way too much description. But Cogman really walks that line perfectly. She leans heavily on ideas that the reader might already know. I think that we can see like 1700 Paris with cobblestone streets, older buildings, carriages down the way, yada, yada, yada. I mean, most of us have watched some sort of movie with some sort of English manor in it. We know the velvet drapes, the downstairs kitchen, the upstairs living quarters for the servants as well. And she leans on that. She gives us just enough description to paint the landscape of what this specific book needs to the setting without bogging the story down. I did not look at all for any more descriptions, and I really appreciated that. It helped the story be a very quick read, and it was just concise. If you're going to read this book for any reason, it is reading Cogman's ability to provide descriptions. It was marvelous. Now, the last thing is kind of a two-parter, just to make a last comment about the book. The idea of the French Revolution in the book was very interesting. Cogman, in some weird way, was still able to stay unbiased in her opinion on the French Revolution. There is a slight little biasness to it, but I couldn't actually, by the end of the book, know whether Cogman was for the aristocrats or the working class, lower class people. Because in a way, by picking the story of the Scarlet Pimpernel or whatever, that shows that you wanted to talk about the saving of the aristocrats. But at the same time, she kept saying the message of freedom and liberty, which is where the other part 2 of this conversation goes. The message that she kept trying to say of freedom and liberty, and the reason the revolution sparked history, was constantly repeated over and over, to the point that I was like, okay, well, I've had enough. I get that some readers might not have the depth of knowledge that I have about the French Revolution and might not mind it as much, but I trust that readers are a little bit more intelligent and don't need the same kind of thought or pattern repeated 500 times in the book. And that was very consistent. She would constantly just repeat the same reason of why the French Revolution was starting, why the people were revolting, yada, 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 all this stuff. And it just became annoying. For me, it was annoying. Now, if you're someone that doesn't know a lot about the French Revolution, I still think that you can get a lot out of this book, no matter what. Well, friends, I hope this helped. I hope I didn't ramble too much. I hope that you learned something and you can decide whether or not you want to read this book. If you liked it, please subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. It helps me reach a larger audience. And if you're interested for more, check out my other book reviews, or even better, listen to our podcast. I co-host with an amazing co-host, CJ. We talk about our writing journey. We have a book club if you want to join in as well, and we talk some industry topics if you're a writer and want to learn more. But thank you so much, friends. Happy reading.